Hall of Famer Chris Mullin is a Golden State legend and was one of the greatest shooters of the 80s and 90s. He was born in New York City in 1963 and grew up playing basketball in the Bronx and Harlem, which, in the 70s, was pretty awesome. The New York Knicks were in their golden age, and Mullin enjoyed watching legends like Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe. In 1981, Mullin led Xaverian High School to a New York Class A state championship. He was then recruited to play basketball for St. John's University in Queens. Mullin had an excellent college career from 1981 to 85, becoming St. John's all-time leading scorer, a 3-time All-American, 3-time Big East Player of the Year, and he led St. John's to a Final Four appearance in 1985, which earned him the 85 John Wooden Award, the UPIA College Player of the Year Award, and the USBWA Player of the Year Award. Mullin even won a gold medal with the USA basketball team in the 1984 Summer Olympics. Chris Mullin was selected 7th overall by the Golden State Warriors in the 1985 draft. Recalling the draft years later, Mullin said, "When I was first selected by the Warriors, I really had no idea where they were located." Mullin had spent his entire life in New York. He had only been to California twice, for the 84 Olympics and to receive his John Wooden Award, but those were just visits. Now, he was living on his own, 3,000 miles away from his home. The transition from 35 games in a college season to 82 in the NBA was tough on Mullin. He was a fish out of water who had no friends, and he didn't feel comfortable in his own skin. As Mullin himself later said, "So here I was, a young kid, 21, 22, making good money, playing a sport that I love, and I found myself not happy." So, Mullin did what many unhappy people do. He tried taking a substance to ease his pain. In Mullin's case, his poison was alcohol. Soon, his lonely nights at home alone became lonely nights at home, drinking alone. Apparently, the homesick Mullin would spend so much time calling his family and friends from California that he was paying $600 a month in phone bills. Chris's father and uncle had both struggled with alcohol problems throughout their lives. Mullin himself had started drinking beer when he was 14 years old, but the habit really increased when he was at college. When the 84 Olympic team all signed their names at their training center, Mullin included a little phrase with his, "If the beer is cold, we'll win the gold." Probably the most famous quote concerning Mullin's heavy drinking early on in his career comes from the book, The Art of a Beautiful Game, by Chris Ballard. Mullin is said to have sunk 194 consecutive jumpers during a workout. So pure is the stroke of such shooters that it is oblivious to all attempts at sabotage, both external or internal. A journalist buddy of mine has a friend who used to work at a beach club on Long Island. He recalls once coming up on Mullin at the club, a few years after Mullin left St. John's, and before he quit drinking. It was late one summer night, almost dark, and the friend heard sounds coming from a nearby basketball court. Checking it out, he discovered Mullin standing there by himself, taking swigs of beer with his right hand and launching one-handed three-pointers with his left, a partially completed six-pack at his side. Shot after shot sank through the net. Swig, swish, swig, swish, swig, swish. In Mullin's rookie season, the Warriors finished with a 30-52 record. The next season, under new head coach George Karl, the Warriors were able to break their decade-long playoff drought when they defeated the Utah Jazz in the 1987 first round, before eventually losing to the Lakers in the second round. Mullin's alcohol abuse really became a problem during the 87-88 season. It got to the point where I'd come home at night and I wasn't worried about what I had to do the next day, Mullin said. "I didn't have a schedule for the next day, and I didn't care. To tell you the truth, there were days when I didn't care if I played again." Mullin was missing appointments, practices, and he was also putting on a lot of weight due to his excessive drinking, apparently getting as high as 250 pounds. Mullin had averaged 14 points in his rookie season and 15.1 in his sophomore season. He was a good player, but it looked like alcohol was making him decline before he would have the chance to become a great player. That's when the legendary Don Nelson stepped in, who wasn't Mullin's head coach just yet, but he was working with the Warriors at the time. Nelly pulled Mullin aside in December and asked him, "Tell me, Chris, they say you're married to the bottle. Is that true?" Mullin responded, "Forget it, they're stories." "Fine, so let's make a bet. You won't touch a drink for 6 months. If you're not an alcoholic, it's doable, right?" Nelson proposed. Mullin proceeded to miss a Thursday practice after he called in to say he couldn't be there for personal reasons. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, as Mullin was suspended by the Warriors from playing on December 11th, 1987, a night where they had a game against the Atlanta Hawks. Substance abuse in the NBA at this time was a real point of concern for the league. I was in a tough spot. When people would ask me, "What the hell are you doing, Chris?" I felt like the others were always nagging me. "So, Chris, late again?" I would spin my way out of it. I had a whole catalog of excuses. My watch had stopped, my car had broken down. All this was not like me. I was disgusted with myself. It was time to call for help. Mullin entered a 31-day rehab program at Centinela Hospital in Inglewood, California on December 13th, 1987. I felt way more open, less concerned about what people thought about me, and more focused on living a good life that particular day, Mullin said. And to me, it was the support and the love and the education I received, not only for rehab, but most importantly, the program and being able to have those meetings, stay in touch with other people like me and feel good about that, and not feel alone. After taking each day at a time, with 6 hours in therapy, Mullin was able to recover from his alcohol abuse. Don Nelson may have saved my life. Without him, I never would have taken the plunge, and everything that followed would never have happened. Without realizing it, I was slowly killing myself. I took back control of my life. I put it back together. I feel much better. Mullin then proceeded to get back into shape. In the summer of '88, a friend of Mullin's suggested that he should get a haircut, which led to the iconic buzz cut we know today. To Mullin, his buzz cut means a lot more to him than just aesthetic. It definitely is something that kinda brings me back to where I was. So obviously it's a little bit more than the way it looks. It doesn't look too good, but there's a lot more meaning to me and my family, and I've kept it ever since. Much like staying with the program each and every day, something over time I'm comfortable with. Chris Mullin proceeded to make 5 straight All-Star games, averaging 25.8 points on 52.3% from the field. He made 5 All-NBA teams, including first-team All-NBA in 1992, the same year he played for the Dream Team in Barcelona. It's a little crazy to think that if Mullin hadn't gotten help, then none of that may have happened, but luckily it did. He took it one day at a time and became one of the baddest and most unassuming superstars in NBA history. The legendary Magic Johnson once said this about Mullin: "When God made the basketball player, he just carved Chris Mullin out and just said, 'This is the player.'" Mullin's number 17 has been retired by the Warriors, and he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2011.